is joining us today from Pune. She is a member of our team. She has a PhD in virology, and she's coordinating the Pune chapter of this. So she's going to be helping me out with the tech. Okay.
Hi everyone. Looking forward to.
Hello.
Mr. Chakraborty, একটু কিছু বলবেন? আপনার গলাটা যদি শুনতে পাই তাহলে আমি ফেসবুকটা স্টার্ট করব।
কি বোধহয় শুনতে পাচ্ছেন না মনে হচ্ছে।
বোঝাতে পারছো?
Hello, Shukrit. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now. Okay, so I'll just start the Facebook Live, and
You have started it? The live is not visible.
We are just starting it in 2 minutes.
Okay, fine.
আমি just set up করছি এটা। Okay, so we are live on Facebook. I would like to wish you all a very, very good evening, and I would like to extend my heartfelt regards to all the panelists, to all the students, to all the members who are helping us develop this chapter on the living waters of Kolkata, and especially ghats of Kolkata, and taking beautiful conversations ahead and looking at how can we, find conclusions or find results. So before I start, for people who are joining us for the first time, I would like to introduce you all to Living Waters Museum. It is a virtual museum which engages youth in visualizing water heritage and reimagining sustainable, inclusive, and equitable water futures. Through the power of storytelling and technology, we seek to celebrate our water wisdom, inspire youth to look at water from an interdisciplinary perspective, and co-build a digital repository as a source of learning for the future. Initially having started at the Center for Heritage Management in Ahmedabad University for the last 2 years, we are currently based at the Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research, IISER, Pune. We are also the founder member of the Global Network of Water Museums, endorsed by UNESCO's International Hydrology Program in 2018. We collaborate with a range of young people from civil society, schools, academia, and creative arts to design and curate digital content and communicate on our diverse water challenges. And we're currently looking at how performing arts can become a medium to encourage dialogue on this matter. We believe that young minds have the strength and resources to bring significant change to conventional approaches to water management and address our complex water challenges. We are joined by Immersive Trails, our partner in this initiative. It is an award-winning, academic-run, research-oriented company that provides in-person and virtual experiences of Kolkata and beyond to enable the citizens to experience the city in a new way and connect with diverse local communities. They also organize workshops for children and adults that teach certain skills that are not otherwise available and that make them aware and responsible stakeholders for sustainable maintenance of our collective urban heritage in a time of rapid urban expansion. I take immense pleasure to introduce our third partner for this event, which is Modern High School for Girls, which is a post-independence all-faith school for girls founded in 1952 by Rukmini Devi Birla under the leadership of Mrs. Violet Clark. It is an all-girls institution committed to developing thinking, independent, and strong young women. MHS is free of any bias and embraces all students on equal terms, irrespective of religion, community, or socio-economic background. It offers a liberal education, which is intended to motivate students to discover and build on their own individual strengths and contribute to the society in turn. Today, we are joined by the lovely students of their business club, which is called ACE, who are working on a research proposal on the economy and livelihoods along the Ghats. And I'm very happy to introduce to you our girls for the evening who will be moderating the session. Over to you, Palak.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Sen, for that wonderful introduction. We are absolutely glad to be a part of this event. Now, before starting with the discussion, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Palak Daga. I'm a 12th grader at Modern High School for Girls, and I will serve as your first panelist for today's panel discussion. Now, as the youth of this country, we feel it is our duty to be a part of such conversations and contribute in whichever way possible. So we are absolutely glad to be here and we thank you for this opportunity. I would like to start with the introduction of my first panelist, Dr. Jaturong Pokharatsiri. Dr. Pokharatsiri is a lecturer in architecture, urban design, and planning at the Faculty of Architecture and Planning, Thammasat University, Thailand. He received his PhD from the School of Architecture, Oxford Brookes University in UK. Most of his previous research projects focused on the tourism gentrification and assessment of value in heritage places of Thailand and Southeast Asia, including World Heritage sites such as Luang Prabang, Hoi An, and Sukhothai, using urban planning methods and place identify processes. He has been an expert member of the Scientific Committee of Cultural Tourism of the International Council of Monuments and Sites since 2008 and was appointed as ICTC's Vice President from 2014 to 2020, aiming to fulfill ICOMOS' obligation to provide academic consultancy on cultural heritage worldwide. Dr. Jaturong, thank you for joining us today and for taking out some time for this panel discussion. I would start with my first question to you, which is that in the last few years, you have shown remarkable commitment and involvement in the field of cultural tourism across Asia. In addition to that, you have also conducted several workshops on sustainability and tourism management internationally as well. Could you please shed some light on the significance of riverine economy through heritage from the South Asian perspective? And considering that, what do you feel are the major bottlenecks that administrative bodies face by looking at a sustainable approach to heritage interpretation and conservation simultaneously? Are there any major lessons that we could learn from that?
Well, thank you for the question and for this very well prepared question that I have considered for the past few days. Well, I could only tell you from the perspective, from the point of view of my experience, because in general, right now, I work in a professional field as an urban planner, and with a background from School of Architecture as well, and with higher education in the field of research of tourism and heritage. Well, to answer that question, the major administrative bottlenecks, to interpret and conserve the heritage with tourism concerns, in my point of view, would be in the aspects of three things. One is about urban planning. The second is about the interpretation of the heritage itself with the living quality of the heritage, which most of the time have been neglected in the conservation of the the monument, the historic town, the physical, the authenticity of the physical. We have been neglecting that bit quite a lot. The people, the human, the living, elements. And the third thing is about the tourism facility itself, which, well, I'm part of the School of Design as well. So to see that, there's a paradigm shift of, many cultural tourism facilitation that, instead of, catering towards the tourists nowadays, with the sustainable tourism approach, many places started to shift to cater towards the local users first. And it's quite become, a major success. And it's, it's changing, the mindset of what a tourism destination should, regenerate itself to be of. I mean, not to cater, directly toward the tourists, but to the local people. But very few destinations, have done so. So these three major aspects is what on my mind, since I started, this field of research, many years ago. I'm not sure, do we have time to, elaborate on some specific aspects? For example, if I may show some slides, can I do that?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yes, okay. Let's see. Here, can you see it? Well, this is, well, it's an article, published, a decade ago, but it's about my case study in Hoi An. It's the ancient historic quarter designated as a World Heritage by UNESCO as well. And about a decade ago, I tried to conduct a workshop, / research in there. But, this kind of basic understanding, of the place itself, require a principle of urban design, urban planning and urban design as well. The aspect of, knowing the quality of the land use, the open space, the circulation, the facilitation of the place, to be able to understand, the situation, especially, in this place, even from, decades ago, it had been fluxed by tourists, and many traditional activities, the shop houses, or activities on the social spaces like the public spaces, the streets. It had been taken over by the tourist activity. So the point is, that kind of assessment should go on and on and on. But basically, we need to make an interpretation of the value of the place, based on these kind of principles, the fact, what's going on, with the place, land use, building rules, open spaces, and so on. And also, we conduct some kind of questionnaire as well to try to, make an understanding of, we use the term, the sense of place, or place and identity. We are trying to, make sense out of it about the landscape change, the everyday life of the people. This is just some example of it. And I have another example come from my work from Sukhothai in Thailand. It's an international workshop with the ICOMOS International Cultural Tourism Scientific Committee, and we have come with the conclusion, in detail aspects, but basically it's about urban planning, it's about the interpretation of the living heritage, and it's about tourism facility as well. And in particular, in the most recent year, in Thailand and Southeast Asia, we're trying to, capture the new sexy faces like creative economic, creative, cities, we have that batch from UNESCO as well. So this is to start with, because I believe that the major administrative bottleneck is that we lack most of the quality, to make an understanding, of all the quality of these issues. And that would be my first opinions towards your question. And thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful insight, Dr. Pokharatsiri. Your dedication toward preservation of the heritage and tourism is indeed inspiring. Moving on, I would like to introduce myself. I am the second moderator for the evening. My name is Kaashvi Gupta. I'm a student of class 12 from Modern High School for Girls. Moving on to our next guest on our panel, Mr. Gotham Chakraborty, who has been the former security advisor of the Kolkata Port Trust. He is currently serving as the honorary advisor in the Heritage Division. He has been known for introducing the Kolkata Port Heritage Initiative, the Port Heritage Talks, and the first land and water port heritage tour, a voyage through tide and time. Sir, thank you so much for taking our time to join us on this panel discussion. My question to you is that the Kolkata Port Trust has taken a few initiatives to showcase Kolkata's exemplary culture. We have heard about the different initiatives that the Port Trust has taken recently, such as the inauguration of the Port Museum, the Kolkata River Heritage Cruise, and several seminars on different aspects of Kolkata and the River Hooghly. Could you please briefly talk about these initiatives and how the Port Trust is planning to build awareness about the same? How will it help in reviving the river economy, and what has been the major shortcomings and successes during the implementation of the same? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Kaashvi. Am I audible enough? Can
Yes,
you hear
sir.
me? Can you hear me? Okay, very good. We heard our previous speaker mention certain areas which are very badly lacking in the entire scenario that is emerging now. The point is that heritage is a collective concern, you know. If you talk of a port like Calcutta, you have to talk of its connections, the long connections, the long time connections, the creative connections, the continuing connections that it had with Southeast Asia, which is represented by Mr. Jaturong, can also be a part of this, you know, riverine economy that we are talking about, because this is the river that brought in commerce to this part of the country once upon a time and earned Calcutta port as the second most important port in the British Empire for a very long period of time. And the city followed the port in becoming the metropole that the riverine economy helped to flourish on its banks. Not that there weren't an economy before, as we say, Job Charnock's arrival. That is a misnomer. But the fact remains that if there was no river here, there would not have been a metropolis like this. So to talk about the past is to talk about how the port grew. And to talk about history is to take a leaf out of it and show the future how the port can go ahead. And in doing so, we need to keep in mind, we need to show to the citizen, we need to show to the intending and the prospective tourist, what are those gems, those precious cameos, those turning points, like the bends of the river, this wily and treacherous river that we know as the Hooghly or the Bhagirathi if you want. What are the turning points? How did this so very important port lead to the ensemble, the historical, the cultural ensemble that we know as Calcutta today? That's very important. So when you ask the question, what is that, what the port wants to show? Let me tell you, I've worked in the port for more than 35 years. I must confess one thing. It took me 21 years out of the official 150 years, official, not unofficial, official 150 years. The port, Calcutta port, has been in its existence. The oldest port in terms of enactment that has been in existence. Of this 21 years it took me to understand where I am working in terms of heritage and history. That is what happens to a person who is working in the port himself. In the dead of the night, perhaps at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, when I'm on rounds at what was earlier the King George's docks, you know that now as the Ishua's docks, when I'm standing on the Gardinary jetties at 1 o'clock in the night, and I see the ship pass, little do I know, beyond my call of duty, where I am standing. That when I'm standing on a jetty that is itself 114 years old. We talk of Calcutta Millennium Park. What is the Millennium Park? The Millennium Park was a string of jetties, you know, where the early ships used to come. Again, to talk of history, what you can show to the port or to the citizen of this country, to the Calcuttan, to the person who is coming from abroad, tourist, overseas tourist. You can show him a port which has come up from nowhere. See, there was a time, many of you must have read Amitabh Ghosh's trilogy. You will find indications of this very well, you know, etched out in the pages of this wonderful trilogy that Amitabh Ghosh has written. He was actually referring to that great chapter in the history of the port. Again, a stuff of history, a stuff of tourism, that is the efflux of a multitude of humanity from here to different parts of the country. Thailand being no exception, Ceylon being no exception, Southeast Asian Johns being no exception, Africa being no exception, Suriname being no exception. And to begin with, it was Mauritius in the year 1834 that the first vessel from the port of Calcutta sailed with its own, you know, load of humanity. Slavery had gone 3 years back and was being replaced by a new set of slavery called the great, that will be known later on to be the great Indian diaspora. Even at that point of time, why I mentioned this is to come back to the point of jetties. There were no jetties once upon a time. What was there? There were these ghats. You had deliberated on the ghats on one of the last sessions, and it was a very interesting session, but I thought the very aspect of history and heritage was lacking in the discussion. What is a ghat? Were there ghats in the first place? If you tell me what is was the first ghat created, I wouldn't be able to tell you. The history is as gory as that. What was there? There were nothing. There were, you know, places in the middle of the river, what we know as anchorages, and later on in maritime terms, these were called moorings, where the ships used to stand. You remember DT first envisioning the ship? It is in the Sea of Poppies here, where he sees the ship. When the boat comes out from where? The Adi Ganga, what we know as Tolly's Nala. One more remnant of the early river system which no longer remains. Again, a stuff of history. Again, a stuff of tourism. As my preceding speaker was saying, we lack this consciousness. We do lack this consciousness. I am wholly with him. Sitting in a place which is steeped in history, sitting in a city which is steeped in history, and working in a port which is steeped in history, I must say we have been lacking in our consciousness of history, of where we work, of who are our predecessors, what we really inherit. That is what we need to keep in mind in order to show the tourist that this is where you are. So when the first jetties, you know, they came up when? They came up only in the year 1875, the Calcutta Jetties, where you see the Millennium Park now is the port's area. This was taken over partially or in collaboration by the West Bengal government and converted into a beautiful waterfront. Don't tell me that there were no waterfronts in the past. There were. We have forgotten about them. We have forgotten about a place called the Respondentia Walk. We have forgotten about a place which was later named as Red Road, which was the Secretary's Walk. We have forgotten about a road that once led from Babu Rajchandra Das Ghat to the old Chorongi, set up by Rajchandra Das himself, which was initially in his name, Rajchandra Das's road, and then converted into Rani Rashmani Road. All these things are stuff of history. It is the river that you ultimately go on to by those creeks and those roads converted from creeks to roads. So many creeks were there, so many ghats were there, which came out of and were led into by beautiful roads which are no longer there. We look at this early Upjohn's map of the late 18th century, come to the early 19th century. Many of the ghats you will see in successive maps, these ghats are no longer there. But the roads have remained. Many of the roads are still reminiscent of the ghats. Can you today tell me of a ghat called the Police Ghat? Do you know where it was? But these ghats were the early avatar of the jetties. You didn't talk of this in the last session, so I thought I should tell you about this, because this is all stuff of heritage. This is all stuff of tourism. When you take the tourists around, tell them, this is how the riverine economy flourished once upon a time. One after one, these ghats used to exist, and they had a threefold or fourfold existence. On the one plane, they catered to the population. Bathing ghats, the wonderful, beautiful, Chatpal Ghat, the sprawling, the sweeping stairs. I remember my grandfather used to walk up all the way from the house up to this particular ghat every morning to have a dip in the Ganges. So the religious aspect that was entwined with the life of every citizen of this country, history. Tourism. Every point is important here. Then we come from there to the economy of the ghat. Have you seen a photograph, or I shouldn't say a photograph, it's a lithograph, of goods being transported on, head-loaded rather, to a ship from the Fort Ghat? You must have seen, some of you must have seen. That was the early economy. Ships could come nearby because of the river, which is a highly wily river with a drought situation, which even today exists. The port is still struggling with that. There was such a drought that the ship couldn't come nearby, so they had to head load.
Dr. Chakraborty, thank you so much, sir. But
I'm sorry, I think I'm going off and on and on. To continue, because this is a session where you need to talk about so much that probably I'll blot out all the other speakers. So I'd better give an intervention. I'll stop right over here. You can continue, Palak. Thank you.
Could kindly conclude, sir. You could conclude in a sentence.
I will conclude later. You can ask the other speakers to speak now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Chakraborty, for providing such an interesting perspective and enlightening us with those knowledgeable facts. I'm pretty sure that our audience must have gained valuable insights from your speech. Now,
it was just the beginning, Palak. So please forgive me. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We are surely awaiting your future answers. Now, moving on to our next panelist, we have Dr. Sanghamitra Basu. Dr. Basu is a PhD from IIT Kharagpur. Her post-graduation degree is on urban planning from SPA New Delhi. She is a Charles Wallace Fellow and has done her MA in Conservation Studies from IAS York. Now, Dr. Basu is a retired professor from the Department of Architecture and Regional Planning in IIT Kharagpur. She has over 35 years of experience in teaching, research guidance, and consultancy projects in the fields of heritage studies and preservation of historic areas, quality of life, and housing and neighborhood planning. During 2011 to 2014, she served as a member of the National Monuments Authority, Ministry of Culture, and is currently serving as a member of several bodies like INTACH Architectural Division Advisory Committee, New Delhi, the Steering Committee, which is the Scientific Council, and ICOMOS Heritage Conservation Committee, Kolkata Municipal Corporation. Thank you, Mrs. Basu, for joining us today. We are looking forward to gaining your valuable insights on the sustainability project. Now, my first question to you would be that you have been an architect member of the Kolkata Heritage Commission. So what do you think is the significance of the river and the port heritage of Kolkata? Now, currently, what are the policies that are being implemented by the KMC Heritage Commission to look at the protection of these sites? And in addition to that, what do you think has been the major challenge for these advisory bodies in conservation and sustenance of such heritage?
Thank you, Palak, for this wonderful opportunity given to me. Um, I'm also talking as an architect member of Kolkata Municipal Corporation. I've been there for almost last 1.5 years. But in addition to that, I also will be speaking as a citizen of Kolkata, my place, and also as an architect and urban planner. See, the riverfront, as spoken to by my previous speaker, the riverfront of Ganga included is adjacent land, open space, trees, plants, all are integral part of Kolkata's ecosystem. So this was once the frontier of Kolkata, and now it has become a backyard because of the many situation historical. Now, talking about the ghats, the ghats are very important, first of all, because they are the interface of, as beautifully explained by my previous speaker. But these ghats are also important, as he said also, that these are community places for various things, as a meeting places, as a religious places. And each ghat was built by different contributions. So I think that multi-layered values of ghat is very important. And to revive that ghat, and especially in the pandemic area, we know how the community level outdoor open spaces are so very important. And as far as the Kolkata Municipal Corporation, we have some listing. I think each of the ghats, like Prasanna Kumar Ghat, I saw that it is a beautiful example of a particular style of architecture, which I think is unique. So I think this inventory and the listing, first of all, is very, very important. And then after that, also the what to do about that how not only to continue with its past uses, but how we can put new life to these ghats. Okay, and not only the ghat, even the other land also. And so we have to see in that ghat as a breathing and interaction space, especially now. So as per the law, Calcutta Municipal Corporation looks after the listing and then protection of that. But if you talk about I think they needs a master plan of the riverfront, including the port area, and how to integrate the carts and bring them back. For example, I'll give you an example. Princip Ghat. That was my first project as a conservation architect. So when I started renovating them, that when the second Hooghly Bridge was under construction, it was in a very bad shape because the entire area was cordoned off. So while restoring that, we first try to understand what is the significance, because that time river was adjacent and it has now gone a little thing. But I think it is not a beautiful structure or a historical structure, because it has the name associated with Princep, that Princep who was here in the Mint Master and who contributed so much because of his hieroglyph, that decoding and Ashokan edicts and others. So when he passed away, uh, the people of Kolkata, they contributed the money and asked land from the military authority to contribute. So it is a shared built heritage. And so I think, and I insisted that that ghat, because it was once a ghat, and that name should be there. So Princep Memorial Ghat. And so I think I think each of the cards have a story, and that story should be unfolded and shared as a thing to put not only the old use but to the new use. And this cannot be only Kolkata Municipal Corporation. I think they have to integrate it in the area development, which is in a master plan for the area, and the KMDA and the planning authority should come into that to see the how to connect the cards. This is one important thing. And that is one. And they also have I think the cards, because, and also I would mention a little bit about Kolkata's port, because I understand that many of the land, and as my previous speaker said, that it has a lot of history. Many of the port and warehouses are not being used. I think there are many examples all over the world that where these huge structures, they are being reconverted into the art studio, art installation project. In Berlin, I remember near the station, the entire area has got a new life because it has become a artist place. Okay, so I think these old structures, they have a value if they are now unused. They could be put to a new use because they not only tell us about Calcutta's multi-layer history, they also have a new use. I think these use which can be done because economics is very important, economics and policy. So I think the corporate social responsibility and other, these are very important to integrate the entire thing as a thing. And I think I'll just mention also about a port because they are also very important part. I think port now has a lot of unused land or excess land, which I think that is an opportunity for the citizens of Kolkata as a whole, because Kolkata citizens really lack the open spaces. Per capita open space is very less. So this gives us an opportunity to have an entire master plan. Charles Courier once offered his help in doing the master plan. I think we can revive and have a master plan, and to not only do a piecemeal development of the cards, but also to integrate the riverfront development, the cars, the future use of the cars, the warehouses. It can be done in stages, and definitely not only KMC, but along with that, the different planning authorities and other stakeholders should be involved in that and making it a people's place, the community's place. That is what I say that is my take on this. So integrated riverfront development with the carts and the open spaces, and in the revised land use development control plan, a master plan, and a stricter enforcement of regulatory, and with the community, with the, because as my previous speaker said, that each community had their own cart, it has its history and other. So with the community, with the people, I think that should be done. That's my text. But the inventory, if it's not there, it should be first. This is also a task which I think has started, the complete inventory and the restoration of the cards. That's okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu, for sharing with us that absolutely important information. I think I speak for everyone when I say that Prinsep Ghat is a go-to place for most people from Calcutta. And we are so glad that you were associated with its restoration. Moving on to our next guest for the evening, Mr. Rangan Dotto. Mr. Rangan Dotto is a postgraduate in business management from Calcutta University and a teacher by profession. Traveling for him started while he was in college, with his tuitions providing for the funds, and it was since then that he got devoted to traveling, as a result of which he never really got into a full-time job. While in college, he started writing travelogues for a popular English daily, and although it has been 25 years since then, he just stepped into his 10th year as a dedicated travel blogger with over 400 plus posts to his credit available at his website. He is also a regular contributor to Wikipedia and an active member of the Wikipedia movement, and serves as a columnist with popular Bengali travel magazine. We are so glad to have you on board, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. My question to you for the evening is that blogging and freelance writing has evolved as a major source of spreading awareness, especially in this pandemic. So, do you feel that heritage bloggers can use their platform to advocate river tourism? How do you see your audience react to your blogs on the river heritage sites in comparison to other sites from a tourism point of view? And what do you think is the significance of these sites?
Yeah, so I've been blogging, as you told everybody, that I've been blogging for about a decade now. Exactly, in fact, I completed 10 years of blogging yesterday only. So I celebrated my 10 years of blogging last day. But I've been writing for newspapers for over 20 years also. So overall I have 20 years of writing experience, travelogue writing experience. And the river has been, and I write mainly on my city only. Okay, most of my blogs, about 400 blogs, about 100 plus have been on the city itself, and many have been dedicated to the river or the heritage related to the river. So the interesting part is that the river, obviously, as Gautam does said initially, that the city exists because of this river. So it's a river port, and not only at the port, the entire river system running along the western part of the city plays an integral role in the developing of the city and the entire, I would say, the entire British Empire. So regarding coming back to the blog, I have quite a few, as I told you, there are quite a few blogs related to the river. And one of them, I would say, the most interesting post that has a lot of responses from a tourism point of view, are the two memorials, two endangered labor memorials that stands on in the Garden Reach and the Kirirpur area, Garden Reach and the Remedi Abuj area, I would say. So, as Gautam Babu told us before that the slavery was abolished in mid-1830s, 40s, and obviously there was a shortage of manual labor to work on the sugarcane fields in the different colonies, British colonies all over the world, in the West Indies, in the Pacific Islands, and even in the Indian Ocean Islands. So there was a requirement for laborers, and India supplied this labor. Okay, so obviously the Amitabha Ghosh's trilogy, the Sea of Vivis, has a lot of information on the Ghats. So there's a lot of heritage related to this, the labor movement which happened from India, from the Calcutta port, right, all over the world, from the Pacific Islands, Indian Ocean Islands, right up to the West Indies. So there's a lot of movement that happened, and now these people who have settled there and their ancestors have been staying there. And if you see the West Indies cricket team, and we get to see a lot of people of Indian origin, and it is their descendants, it was their forefathers who made the journey from the Calcutta port all the way to these islands. Okay, so these people now want to get back to Calcutta. They want to get back to Calcutta and see the place from where their ancestors made their final journey out of the country. So, and these two memorials, one is located inside the port area, just next to the clock tower, and other near the CSC office, just behind the CSC office in Garden Reach. And presently, both the memorials are a bit difficult to locate. Okay, they have been marked well in the Google map, so you can see it in the Google map, but reaching them is still a bit difficult option. There are very few signage leading to this point, and a lot of people come and to see these memorials, and they ask me how to get there. So I always try to help them out. But there are a few people who does not contact me, and they're very difficult finding out the place. And even if I am telling them the direction, it is very difficult to get to the exact location. I think a bit of signage would be necessary to develop, helping people who have come from all across the world, right from the other side of the world, to visit the places where their forefathers made the final journey across the oceans. And other I think I would add to is this indentured labor movement. There are a lot of sites which are connected to the indentured labor movement. So the depots, the depots that are along Adi Ganga, Gautam just said that there are depots along Adi Ganga. I think the Mauritius depot was right now the place where you have a VSNL office, right next to the police training station, police training school. Another of the depot which have been part of which I identified, which is Natal depot, has been part of the shipbuilders office. Okay, it has been office of the shipbuilders. So these places obviously have been put into different reuses now, making access difficult. Okay, making access to this difficult. VSNL obviously, and the shipping corporation, the shipbuilders obviously don't allow tourists to get into those restricted places. So what I can think is that there should be a cross-cultural interaction to make some of these places accessible to the tourists who are coming from the other side of the world. I just comparing with the slave tourism in Africa. So before the indentured labor movement started, there are a lot of people who were taken as slaves from Western African countries right into the new world. And obviously these people are now citizens of USA and other countries. And these descendants now come back to their place, come back to their country, and to see the places from where their forefathers were forced into the slavery. Okay, same thing could have happened in Calcutta. A lot of people come up, and you had a last session with the Living Heritage Waters, and in that session we have a ex-West Indies cricketer Darren Ganga, who happens to be a descendant of indentured labor coming up, and he spoke about the emotions he had when he visited to these places right on the river Hooghly, from where his forefathers made the journey. And I also think there should be a proper documentation of the people who have made the journey across these oceans. Okay, a lot of documentation have been made by countries where they went. Okay, there'll be a lot of documentation in Fiji, a lot of documentation in Mauritius, Reunion, Trinidad, Suriname. But if you get a documentation in India, it is very, very less. If you get a documentation in there, is very, very less. So we can have a website. And make a list of the ships that sailed from Kolkata and which date they reached, number of people in the ship, and obviously there have been few casualties on the way. It's a long journey across the ocean. Some people died on the ocean. So now how many people reach the final destination and so on. So this is one of the tourism prospects which I get a lot of inquiry on. So I get a lot of inquiry from people from West Indies, different islands of West Indies, Suriname, Guyana, people from Fiji, people from Trinidad, and so on, so on. So they wanted to come up and see the places, and they wanted to know about their journey, final journey of their forefathers. So this is something we can focus on. Gautam has done a lot of work on it. Gautam has done a lot of work on it. We have several sessions on the photograph memorial as well as the Suriname card. But we think more is needed. More is needed and to make these places accessible to the people who are coming from right across the world. Thank you now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dotto. I think all of us could relate with your answer at some point, and all of us feel that cross-cultural interaction can be absolutely vital at this point. Now, as we finish our first round, I would like to thank all our speakers. We shall now be proceeding to the second round, where we'll be understanding what is the way forward and delving deeper into these aspects. Now, for the audience, all your questions will be answered at the end by our panelists, but I would just request all of y'all to mention your name, the institute you are affiliated with, and the panelist you want to direct your question to in the chat box along with your question. Moving to our first question, Dr. Pokharatsiri, I would like to direct it to you. Now, looking from the South Asian context, which in many ways is different from Western countries in terms of population, wealth index, etc., what do you feel are the best practices to develop local riverine economy and livelihoods alongside sustaining its heritage?
Dr. Jaturong, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry again. Thank you. And well, from the question, I think the differences between the Eastern and Western principle towards conservation and heritage management, it has been more and more obvious during the 1990s, towards the 2000s. In terms of conservation, if you look at the some international charters or a principle like the international charters, NARA documentation and authenticity, maybe some of you have been familiar with it, in terms of conservation, and we're trying to, look outside of the realm of, the Western, ideology of the conservation should look like, it's not about the material, it's not about the authenticity, of the, or durability of the material. It's about spirituality. It's about, to endure it, to nurture the spirits, that live with the material of the place, which is even more important to the, craftsmanship, the continuity of the people and the life and the craftsmanship of the people. Well, example, like this have been, in many places, like in, Middle East, in South Asia, in Japan, in China, in Southeast Asia, we kind of, want our tradition to live on, but not the material, not the building itself, or not the, the physical elements of the places itself, but the people's quality, the spiritual quality of the places. And looking at these Eastern and Western, differences in terms of, recognizing the principle towards its own heritage recognition or conservation. When I listened to Mr. Gautam about his memory of his father dipping, in religious rituals, every morning in the river, and also from Dr. Basu about, if some regeneration or development should take place, it should consider about, it to be the spaces for the people. It's mean, we should consider a space not for the history's sake, but for the contemporary life's sake as well. Well, when I mentioned about this, in terms of when we conducted the study, doing research, doing our professional practice of urban planner and architecture, we kind of neglect this kind of, aspect. If I may, I might take just one more minute. I would like to show you some other example of my research This is, from my PhD, for example, I try to question about, the contested, space and time meaning, about the social and economic value impacts of a place that have been, mostly recognized by its, physical, appearance. And about the tourism gentrification, of course, newcomer people, they have money, they come to, regenerate the places, to conserve, the physical aspect of the places because they have money. But the drive up, the rent and the affordability of people, just out of hand from for the local people, and of course, the threatened, self identity of the people. The place supposed to belong to the people who live there for generations, but when tourism schemes of development come in, it's just completely flip the charge, and it turns into the place that they mean the local people, do not recognize their own place anymore, or have been driven out of the places, that belong to their family for generations. And well, that's something I would like to support, our speakers, on the matter, and emphasize on the importance of that we need, this kind of data, one way or another. On the urban planning aspect that I told you already is, GIS, geographical information system. We need some overlay map with the, social and economic, quality of information to be able, for everyone, for the public to read the same kind of data and make the judgment, based on the same kind of, geographical, information data. And also for Mr. Datta, one word that strike me is about the accessibility, of that area, or the story that should be told to the people, not just the tourists, but some local people haven't heard of that story, for whatever, the obstacles. Well, immediately, I think about, because right now it's about technology, it's about blocking, it's about, making it accessible one way or another. If not by, reality, we could use, multiple reality, we could use, virtual realities, whatever, way that make people gain accessibility towards that story, that area, it would be, providing, tremendous changes toward the consciousness of people. Just let it, go out and let more people know about it, and it will be more debated, and I think things will come, more interesting in that way. And I think that would be, my take on my answer of this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pokharatsiri, for sharing your research work with us. We'll be moving on to the next guest, Mr. Gotham Chakraborty. Sir, considering the challenges, especially the current situation, what measures do you feel should be taken up in the future for the holistic development of the port and riverside heritage, as well as making the initiatives more environmentally friendly for the river? What are the strategies that you plan to implement in order to market your future campaigns and attract the youth and tourists?
Thank you, Kaashvi. I'll just go through some of the questions that have been raised by Mr. Jaturong, as well as Dr. Basu and Mr. Datta, and try to interlace that with your question so that I can be as short, as brief as possible, not to recur the mistake I did on the earlier occasion of going on and on. First of all, let me tell you that what Mr. Jaturong has, the question that he has put up is very important. That is multi-strata consciousness to be injected into the local people as well as tourists at the same time. That is very important, no doubt about it. And we are precisely trying to do it in a way that we can within our limitations, because we have to inform everyone, that keep everybody informed that the Calcutta Port is an autonomous organization. We are not a state unto ourselves. Unlike the state government or the central government, law and order is not within our jurisdiction. We are an autonomous organization. Unlike the state government or the central government, we have to earn our own income in order to do whatever we wish to do. That includes all these heritage projects. So coming to Dr. Basu's questions now as to what we can do with our warehouses, our land. Again, Dr. Basu, let me assure you we have been doing whatever we could, and that I'll combine with Kaashvi's question, looking towards the future. For example, that you, some of you spoke about, referred to, is the Maritime Museum that the port set up. The first Maritime Museum to be set up by any port is within this, one of these warehouses, is the old Ferry warehouse. The three warehouses, one after the other, the Ferry, the Clive, the Canning, that you see right now. The other one was gutted. The beautiful, wonderful Strand warehouse, which unfortunately got gutted on Valentine's Day in the year 2010. It represents one of those Strand warehouses on the Thames. Wonderful, it on this wonderful architecture. It was gutted down, we couldn't keep it. But the others, I'm sorry to say, I shouldn't possibly be saying this, but do you know how many court cases embroil the existence of these warehouses for the port of Calcutta? How many court cases we are fighting just against illegal occupation of these places? And then we need the state government's assistance to throw out these illegal occupiers. What a huge issue this is. You know, the Jagannath Ghat Godown came down in another fire. Those fires didn't take place because of our negligence. It was because of the illegal occupants keeping things inside that burn or explode. Do you remember the Calcutta Jetties, how it came down? The beautiful Calcutta Jetties. What is the Millennium Park? I started with that. That is one of the biggest examples of the government cooperating with the port in setting up a wonderful waterfront. And for your information again, we are now, I'll combine that with Mr. Rangan Datta's question. We are now bringing up a lovely, wonderful, remodeled, redone up facelift of the Indenture Memorial Site. If you go next year, you will be coming to a completely different area with a hangout area with an auditorium, and yes, as Rangan Datta very rightly said, with a pageantry that shows the diaspora that took place from Calcutta and back to Calcutta after 1919. All the stories could be found on a pageantry on display boards at the Indenture Memorial Site. You can go there, you can hang around, and you can see a lovely bit of history over there. So these things are all coming. Let me assure you, the port is trying within its limit, but we have our limits as the port. We are not the state government, neither the central government. So I hope that will make things a little clear, if not entirely clear. Thank you, Vasavi.
Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty. We absolutely understand your limits and constraints, and how you are actually giving in so much of effort for this entire project as the Kolkata Port Trust. Now I'll be moving on to my next question, which is to Dr. Basu. Dr. Basu, all of us are aware of the various efforts that have been made by the Kolkata Municipal Corporation and other governing bodies to beautify the Kolkata Riverside. But the environmental health and the historic structures on these riversides often lie neglected. What role should advisory bodies play in terms of building collaboration and governance alongside maintenance and conservation of the riverside heritage of Kolkata?
Thank you, Palak. I think this is exactly I try to hint at, and I also share with Mr. Chakraborty the concern that and the pain of the burning down of the. I visited those places, the beautiful structures. And I do share that the port trust, the land was leased to the port trust for the port activities. So when as I understand that the port doesn't need so much of land. Okay, so now I think, I mean, that the land, as he rightly said, that it is not port's work. Okay, in these land, which is now free, I mean, it gives an enormous opportunity. And I think this land should go to the people of Kolkata, and all the bodies, Kolkata KMDA within the land LUDCP, that what has been done, that it is the, because as I already said, that this is the climate action, we have a lot of, we need an open spaces, which is access to the all the people, and it can become a creative place. And also economy is very important, but should not be a real estate development along with the water network. So I think that land which is now free, and the port doesn't need that because it's a lazy lease land, and it should go back to the people under the government, all the stakeholders, in a very transparent and collaborative way through a public consultation process with a large riverfront master plan for integrated, and concern agencies should go to that how it can become a place for the people with many activities, creative activity, pedestrian cycling activities, along with all the museums and other things. And that is can really change Kolkata's. And this is actually an opportunity. It's a huge task, mammoth task, and it can't be done by port alone, and it shouldn't be. It should go back to as a total integrated way to the city, and that is my suggestion. And I think that through public consultation process, and which for a climate action also, because I say Kolkata needs a lot of open spaces. This is a wonderful opportunity to that. And through a, as I say, not a real estate development, but which is a economy should be there, but for a creative economy, for the tourist attraction, the people of Kolkata. I think that's, I mean, again and again, that all people, they have a fundamental right to the access to the open space and the city, which this unused or underused or encroached land is giving. And so I think all, though it looks very idealistic, but I think many examples are there with a good intention. It is possible. And I think all the individual cars, warehouses and all should be integrated with this overall integrated plan. I think that's I think, and that will protect, preserve, and regulate all the implementation policies should be there. It's not just a physical plan on the paper. It should have all the management and implementation things, and that should be done through a public consultative process. That's my take on this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu, for raising your concerns as well as your suggestions. I think that is definitely some food for thought for all of us today in this panel. My next question is to Mr. Rangan Dotto. Considering your experience as a traveler and a blogger, what are the aspects that make riverfront tourism around the world more sustainable, and how can the blogging community contribute to improve awareness and increase footprints on the Kolkata riverside?
Yeah, so I'll be better sharing the screen and showing a bit of photographs regarding the recent developments that have happened on the Calcutta riverfront. And I also will be showing some photographs from my visit to Bangkok, the Chowphara riverfront in Bangkok. Okay, let me share the screen. So this is a Hooghly riverfront, I guess. Right.
Yes, sir. Susan.
Yeah, fine. So we start with a few pictures. So Calcutta, this is from the Howrah side. Okay, you can see the Calcutta city on the right hand side, on the left hand side. The second Hooghly bridge, this is the Howrah riverfront. So in recent years, the Howrah riverfront has gone through a huge level of development. So there are a lot of places to see. People can come and enjoy their evening, even the morning. People can just jog and exercise out here. A lot of open spaces, and people can sit and chat. There are places where snacks. There's vendors who sell snacks like fried peanuts to ice creams and fuchkas and all those things. So another view you can see the second Hooghly bridge and the riverfront. And this is the view of Calcutta. Look how beautiful Calcutta looks like. So you have the offices of the State Bank, the new secretariat, the Eden Gardens. You can see the fertilizer of Eden Gardens. There's an interesting bridge out here. I'll tell you a little bit later on. I'll show you one more photograph. And this again, the second Hooghly bridge from the Howrah side. And this is from the river, from a ferry in the river. The ferry in the river, we can see the Howrah bridge. This is facing northwards. You can see the Howrah bridge, and this is an interesting bridge which has come up very recently. Okay, this bridge, as you can see, it is parallel to the river. It's not across the river. This bridge allows people to walk from all the way from the Princess Ghat right up to almost to the Millennium Park. So a continuous riverside walkway has been made by introduction of this bridge. Okay, so this type of constructions I think would be beneficial for the tourists and the city people alike who can enjoy the riverfront of their own city. And obviously, this is the second Hooghly Bridge at night. And we have the Princess Memorial, and the second Hooghly Bridge in its background. Beautifully landscaped, and beautiful place, hangout place for Calcuttans and even for the tourists. Now I move on to a little bit of Bangkok. Okay, a little bit of Bangkok, the Chao Phraya riverfront, and it's nice to have Professor Jaturong with us. And the interesting part of Bangkok is that they have a very unique and very well organized ferry system. Okay, I'm not talking about the heritage cruise and the sunset or the dinner cruise that happens on the Chao Phraya river. We also have it in Hooghly, but this ferry system is a very different. Okay, we also have a interesting ferry system in Kolkata. We also have a very interesting ferry system in Kolkata, but there are hardly any maps of the ferry. Okay, maps or the timings of the ferry. This is a very interesting map. This is a ferry in Bangkok. It runs for a stretch of 21 kilometers and have 33 piers. Okay, and these are the different types of ferries that operate in Bangkok. The right one, which stops at all the piers, is the no flag ferry. Okay, this doesn't have a flag. This is a green flag ferry, which stops at certain points. You can see, which is slightly expensive. Yellow flag is mid-range, which is again stops at very limited point, and orange flag, which is most preferred by the tourists. Okay, most preferred by the tourists, stops at most of the places. And blue flag is a tourist ferry, and this is definitely expensive. Okay, this is definitely expensive. So this is, you can choose your ferry, and these maps are all available throughout Bangkok in any tourist information office or tourist information kiosk. So you can just pick them up and follow the map and visit places along the Chao Phraya River in Bangkok. Okay, this is the orange flag. This is the orange flag. You can see the orange flag out here. This orange flag ferry. So I took this ferry. I was in 2018, and I took the ferry from the Farah Atit Park to Jaturong, Tashkent. Okay, and from Tashkent I took the sky rail back to my hotel. Okay, so this is the Tashkent Park, and you can see the interesting part. What we lack in Kolkata is that the signage. Okay, signage is a very important for budget tourists. Okay, these people don't rely on guides, and they obviously rely on their sense of direction, Google Maps, and the signage on the street. So this is a very interesting signage for the Chao Phraya tourist board, and you have a signage. You can see it's both in English and Thai. So this is the Paratit Park. I was waiting for my ferry. So you can see everything in bilingual signage, and you have a ferry number. You have a pile number everywhere. Okay, you have a pile number everywhere. So this is another part. And this is, I think, Wangling Park. And then we move on further down south of the Asiatic River, and this is Professor Jaturong should be knowing. This is Asiatic Chinese warehouse along the river, which have been beautifully converted into a shopping mall with shops and a giant wheel. Okay, giant Bangkok Eye. So this is a small presentation. So before I end, I just need to thank Gautam Da. 1 minute, let me stop the share. I just need to thank Gautam Da for the amazing work he is doing. Gautam Da ordered a report for us for the amazing work which has been happening in the clock tower area. I was there last time. I was there in January when Shukrit was also with me, and things were a little better at the time in Kolkata. So we made a visit to the clock tower, and we see there are a lot of construction activities coming up. And hope the cafeteria and the museum should come up soon, and hope everything should be a corona-free world soon, and you can visit those places and enjoy the river along with its history. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dotto, for those excellent pictures and that beautiful presentation. Mr. Chakraborty, I suppose you wanted to say something. We would request you to keep it a little short because of the time constraints, but you could please go ahead.
I'm unable to hear you properly, Palak. But will you allow me to respond to one or two things that Dr. Basu said? Hello?
Yes, Chakraborty, but please short.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Dr. Basu, you said one thing that is, I think I've either misunderstood or there is some lack of clarification. I have never said that the port doesn't require these lands. What I've said is that much of it is under illegal occupation and we are trying to throw them out. Once we recover them, then we have our own plans. We, as I told you, you can relate it very easily. We are a self-revenue generating organization. We need these lands to be rented out and given a commercial purpose. We are the third most important port right today in terms of container handling. Don't forget that. We need a very big backyard. So I may now kindly not be misunderstood. These lands are needed. But what is the Millennium Park for that matter? It is something that we have given to the citizens. This large area is ours. We have given it to them so that they can continue. The state government can do whatever they wish to do. And for your information, we are taking over again Millennium Park 3. And if you go there, maybe a few months from now, after the COVID is over, you will see a beautiful piece of structure, the architecture that is going to come up for the citizens. But these are all our own citizen-centric work that we have been doing in our own way. So I just wanted to make that small point clear. And regarding Rangan, I'd like to add to you once again that one of the heritage vessels called the PS Bhopal, the paddle stiff Bhopal, that will never be seen again. Only one piece is there in this entire maritime area. That is now being renovated and made ready for the tourists. Probably that will come next year, early next year. It is now being fitted out in one of the shipyards at Gushuri. So we are hoping that this will also be presented to the citizens of Calcutta and the world, in fact, very soon. Thank you, Palak.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Gautam.
Thank you, Mr. Chakraborty. We can totally understand that there are many roadblocks, but the reason why all of us have met here today is to collaborate and move forward and to find viable solutions to the existing problems. So I hope we can move forward now. Today we also have Ms. Mcgill and Ms. Grover from Living Waters Museum. So I would like to know your perspective that looking at the effects of COVID, how can y'all play a role in interpreting the heritage record? I'm sorry, from Immersive Tales. Apologies for that. Yes, Ms. Grover and Ms. Mcgill.
I think, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I think what we've seen, of course, with COVID is that there's a physical limitation to a lot of these spaces. And something that we've done at our end at Immersive Trails is to try to take things digitally and virtually as much as possible. So in a sense, essentially what we do is we, of course, from the research that we conduct on different areas and different aspects, we try to interpret that in a way that is both educative and entertaining at the same time. So the most accessible way that we found to do that is actually to do it through experiences such as walking tours and heritage tours and things like that. But with COVID, of course, when it sort of limited how many people could come together, and it at one point even limited people actually stepping out of their houses. So that's when we thought that maybe we can take it virtual and essentially try to not exactly replicate a physical experience, but to create an entirely new experience in a virtual space. So, and we actually saw that with that, what it did is it opened up avenues for people all over the world to actually come and experience a city, come and experience a part of the city, come and experience its history. So, definitely even we would say even post-COVID, we don't think that tourism is going to go back to its, what it was prior to it. Essentially now travelers are going to become more sort of thoughtful, more responsible. They're not going to be looking at the conventional tourism and things like that. So they're going to become, they'll essentially want bang for their buck. So they will want to spend their money wisely and spend it in doing more immersive things and more educative things. So we think that definitely translating heritage into a virtual medium in a sense that you do the research, you do all the on-ground work and try to sort of put that onto an online platform so that essentially accessibility is not an issue, wherein for someone who is in another part of the world, someone who is who has mobility issues, they don't really need to actually step out of their house or actually travel halfway across the world to just see something. So I think that will open up avenues for people not only living within the country but even at at a global level. And I think that is something that we've tried to focus on during this time of COVID and things like that. Chelsea, would you like to add something to that?
No, I think you've covered it, Anmol.
Thank you so much, Anmol ma'am and Chelsea ma'am, for your wonderful initiative, because it has definitely enabled a lot of people like us to explore the world, to explore our heritage, even during these tough times. Now, my question is open to the entire panel. Whoever wishes to answer can do so. So, how can schools and students play a role in understanding such sensitive aspects of our city from a grassroots level? I'm sorry, but we want to direct this question to Ms. Sara from Living Waters Museum. Ms. Sara, how do you think we as students can contribute? I shall repeat the question for convenience.
No,
How can schools
all right. Okay, go ahead. You can repeat the question. Go ahead.
How can schools and students play a role in understanding such sensitive aspects of our city from a grassroots level?
Hi, great. Thank you, first of all, so much for the work that you're doing with us, all you bright young girls. Our future is in safe hands, at least our water futures, I can say that. My apologies, I've been with the global network of water museums attending our meeting as well over there, because I'm on that board. So we've been working with schools all over the place in Mumbai, in Pune, in Calcutta, in Ahmedabad. And I think that there is a lot of, there is focus in your curriculums on water education and environmental education, but it tends to be rather science focused or rather physical geography focused. And what we want to do as Living Waters Museum is bring in that perspective that makes you think about issues of equity, of access to water, of gender and water, who has water, who doesn't, what are the SDG goals, and also all the faith and cultures and practices associated with water. So as a virtual museum, that's the role we play, bringing together these different aspects of water. So it's not just an element and it's not just a resource, but it is sacred. It's something that we need to learn to respect for the future as well. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that happen a lot. So our idea with education is to open it up, to make you question water, to look at it from the arts, from so many different angles, books, films, music. There's so much, there's such a rich vista of work on water. It's not just the physical and the built elements of water. So that's what we want you to think about. And I think when you go along these ghats and the river, the stories that you hear and the connections that you make from your little urban space to a much larger global platform, that is amazing. So in our water museum network, there are many museums that are doing virtual walks. There are many museums that are working in urban spaces along waterfronts, like what you've been talking about this evening. And I think that role that we play in connecting, someone said that whilst the pandemic has made most of us stay at home, but it's also opened up a whole new global world to us. And that is amazing. So we want to build on those. We want to bring those to schools. We want to see whether we can create programs with a school like yours in Calcutta, where you can maybe work with a school in Austria or somewhere else where we have our museums. That would be so exciting if we can do those kind of exchange programs. So thank you again for whatever you're doing.
Ms. Sara, thank you so much it would be our absolute honor to be a part of such exchange programs and the points you just mentioned. I think now we'll finally move on to the audience questions because our audience has been pretty active and thank you for being so cooperative. There are many questions, but due to lack of time, we need to shortlist a few. The first question is for Mr. Pokharatsiri, Dr. Jaturong. Environment and climate change is a major factor, and we often forget to look at the river while concentrating on what's on its ground. So, what is your perspective on that?
Sorry. Well, climate change, right?
Yes, sir, the environment and the climate change is proving to be a major factor today, and how it's affecting the rivers and its riverbeds.
Well, it is affecting everything, to be honest, with climate change. I don't have, some easy way, to have a word for the resolution of that kind of problem, climate change. But in terms of urban planning, and what the professional urban planner, I think all around the world is trying to do, it's we have a word like, right, Dr. Basu, it's a resilient, city, resilient, settlements. We're trying to, we know the disaster would come. We can't escape it, every river delta, city, town, if we choose to stay here, to endure it, we need to face the disaster. We can't escape from it. But the idea of resilient city or settlement is that when the disaster strike, we have to, stand up, and try to act, as normal, as quick as possible and move on. And that is the future, of urban planning and even for architectural design, landscape design. We try to, kind of, accept more that these things will come and we have to live with it. And try to, suffer, less from it. It's, urban planning things, you should look up, on the term resilient, but it means that, we are not going to prevent it, protect ourselves from it, but more kind of endure it, accept the fact that we have to face it and then, get up quickly. But in some other countries, they might have, clever solution, if you look at the climate change, and in city, that prone to be inundated by the sea level rising, like the Netherlands, those kind of port town cities. Well, they have done quite well, so there are quite a number of examples for those. But I didn't expect this question, to be honest, because I'm looking at the question on the Facebook messages, and I'm trying, to prepare, my answer to those questions. But it's really up to you, Palak, because you are the moderator. There are some questions, direct to me about some views on the encroachment or something. But back to you, Palak. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Jaturong, actually, someone was unable to type it out in the chat box, so we received it in the private message section. But we apologize for the inconvenience.
All right. So may I answer some question on the Facebook messages, because I see some question that
we've exceeded the time limit currently, so I think Kaashvi was going to move on with a few questions. Kaashvi, over to you.
Oh, okay, fine.
Dr. Jaturong.
So our next question is directed to Mr. Gotham Chakraborty and Dr. Sanghamitra Basu. Professor Jaturong just spoke about disaster, which aligns with another question from one of our seniors, Ms. Shayantani Roy. She asks that we have been seeing in the news that the Hooghly River is now changing course, especially north of Howrah Bridge, and embankments built along the ghats are continuously being compromised due to the same putting some very important ghats in vulnerable positions. What efforts are being taken to protect the same? Dr. Chakraborty, you could go first.
First of all, we do not see any real danger right now because this has been taken care of, because the embankments are more or less sturdy. Here there is no problem, but there are issues in the upper reaches and as you go lower down. It is not just 2 days ago, yesterday's matter that the river has been changing course. We have a complete division called the River Training Division. It is taking efforts and consistent efforts to see that the river is properly dredged. Wherever required, we are creating embankments and spurs to control and train the river. So it is not true that any of the ghats are in any fear of being dilapidated. But yes, a lot of things have happened in the past. You know, the Strand Road itself has been rebuilt not just once but twice, and the ghats have been relocated. So right now we do not anticipate any major, danger to the structure that is there along the spaces on the embankment. But we are keeping a very close watch, and we have a full-fledged division along with the PWD, along with the government of West Bengal. We are on it. We are on the job. It is that much only I can tell you.
Mr. Chakraborty. Dr. Basu, over to you.
I think Mr. Chakraborty has explained that, but I will again say that if I still feel that there has to be an integrated master plan. And I mean, this gives also me to the opportunity that, I mean, there was recently a port development for some other use. So some of the remarks were in context of that. Anyway, I won't go into that. But I said that when that integrated master plan need to be done, ports area, the other area, whatever. I mean, there it should be multidisciplinary, where geologists, environmental engineers, all of them should look into that what are the present and what are the future dangers and how it's done. So, I mean, my entire point is having if required, an international competition or something, that where a multidisciplinary approach should take into hydrology, all the specialists should be onto that, and to do that in integrated manner. It can be implemented action plan wise, phase wise, but that total planning should be done. That's my take. And it should be for a multidisciplinary, not just beautification, not just only a land use. It should be taken care by all the concerns, especially the climate, the green, the impact assessment that should be there scientifically and rationally. Thank you.
Palak, if you allow me, can I just add something to what you asked the previous speaker before Dr. Basu on how you, young students and others, can participate in this process? Can I just say a few words on that?
Yes, we would love that.
Yes, what I'd like to tell you is that what Sara said is very important. Can you develop on that? Can you help Sara in creating a virtual tour of Calcutta and the river, which you can probably send across to the schools, which they can see? Even, some of the beautiful, lovely documentaries have been made in recent times. Did any of you see the BBC documentary, Who Do You Think You Are, where Oliver Coleman came down to Calcutta and was, and she interacted with two historians of Calcutta, Professor Rudrangshu Mukherjee and Professor Rachana Chakraborty from the University of Calcutta. Did any of you find an occasion to see that? We need more documentaries like that. If you haven't seen that, please see. It is very popular on the BBC. So other channels are doing work on it. And if you see that, you will see how a person traces her roots to Calcutta from faraway England. And that is being played by the very Oscar winner actress Olivia Colman. So these things can be done here. So if you can think of such a project where you can also participate, think about it. That's my small rejoinder to it.
Thank you, Dr. Chakraborty. We would surely look at that aspect and try to collaborate in the best way possible. We are also working on this currently, and various clubs of our school in association with Living Waters Museum and Immersive Trails are currently planning on this. So we hope to see some fruitful results in the future. Dr. Jaturong, because he wanted to answer a few questions, there is a question, something which Mr. Chakraborty was mentioning too, and this would be our last question. Dr. Chakraborty spoke about encroachment being a major problem, not just in Kolkata, but all throughout the globe. And while court cases definitely they slow us down as heritage enthusiasts, how do you think we should look at this from this perspective, and how can we help and generate local livelihoods? Dr. Pokharatsiri, if you would like to take that.
But the question about local livelihood, encroachment, and I try to read as many questions as quickly as possible on these Facebook chats, and I think all are relevant. But one thing that struck me is that one person asked about how do we, well, it's about the local people, their economy, like the vendors and the hawkers, street hawker and street food, And another example is from the Mr. Datta about the case of Bangkok and the riverboat tour, and people are still using it in their everyday life. I think this is the meaning of it. The point of in at least in my perspective nowadays, after a few years, a decades of involving in terms of heritage management and conservation, I think that the livelihood of the people is the core of everything. If you look at the most recent model of doing the heritage interpretation and conservation, if you look at Singapore, I mean, might be the first country in the past few years to try to make a global recognition of its hawker food and lifestyle. I mean, at the beginning, people would point the fingers to the Singaporean government and think this is crazy. I mean, hawker food, street food, how would we, I mean, honor it, in a proper way and try to fuse it into the local economy as well. But now it's a big success, and everybody's happy, and it's a world case study. It's very cutting edge. It's about the intangible cultural heritage, and people would never think about it before, and now it works. But it take a lot of works to make it work. For example, the street food, okay, recognized by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage, but they also spend millions, hundreds, maybe hundreds of millions as well, to try to facilitate that channel, to make it work into the new economy for the young people, the creative economy. They spend a lot of money, trying to get the Michelin, a restaurant guy, to recognize it. They pay a lot of money every year, continuously. And now, the young people, the young professional in Singapore is very diverse. They could choose. I mean, if you look at, 2 decades or 3 decades ago, people would choose to be, in a very academic scholars, very serious, direction towards their own future. But now they could choose more creative way, cultural base. They could choose to be the chef. They could choose to be, many things. And that's some way we could do. And also another example of encroachment and Bangkok, Chao Phraya River. I saw a picture of Mr. Datta showing the pedestrian walkway along the river. In Thailand, in the past few years, we have that kind of project administered by the central government. But the scholars and activists are having a huge, objection towards the case, and they bring the local government to the court, trying to postpone or cancel that kind of project, because they think that the structures that the government try to propose and build there is the encroachment to the cultural livelihood of the river. But the local people activity, small people activity in their everyday, even though it looks obscene to the local government, and the local government try to think, on behalf of the tourists, that this should look beautiful. But the scholar and the activists think otherwise, that it's beautiful as is. You don't need to change it. If you build these structures, this promenade along the river, that is the encroachment, and it will destroy the whole cultural livelihood of the river. And that's my takes on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pokharatsiri. With that, we come to an end to this panel discussion. Both Palak and I would like to extend our gratitude to Sukrit Sir, Living Waters Museum, Immersive Trails, and our institution, Modern High School for Girls, for giving us this wonderful opportunity. I would also like to take this opportunity to mention the teachers who have helped us throughout: Mrs. Kaur, Ms. Mitro, Mrs. Banerjee, Mrs. Shamungto, Ms. Malik, and every other teacher that has helped us throughout this process, and for giving us this wonderful opportunity. Over to you, Sukrit Sir.
Hello. Thank you, Palak and Kaashvi. I think this was a long discussion, and this is such a topic that we cannot really, fit this in within like 1.5 hours. Although we feel that we've covered quite a lot of ground, and we've covered some very, very important aspects. And as all our speakers kind of pointed it out, that considering current times, considering climate change, considering looking at accessibility to these heritage sites, considering looking at encroachment, we have to really take a very, very integrated approach of not just looking at tangible, but also extending ourselves to the intangible, and at times even beyond that, looking at the spiritual aspects that Dr. Jaturong just mentioned. Things that we haven't been speaking about, but these are the actual relationships, unseen relationships that people share with these spaces, and we have to find ways to find crossroads to develop these and interpret these for the local people so that they know about it. And I feel as custodians to this project from Living Waters Museum, Immersive Trails, and of course, like we have so many students joining in from Modern High School and other schools as well, bringing in some very, very vital questions. I think we will get there. We are already on the way. There are no easy answers. We don't need to get it right now, but the fact that before we say we can't, we at least got to try, and then we'll definitely reach a point. I would also like to mention that as we started with this project, we've received a lot of, again, roadblocks with COVID and the second wave coming on, but thankfully we're all safe. We are recovering very soon, and hopefully by December, we'd like to bring in front of you all a presentation. I think there were many aspects that Mr. Chakraborty also mentioned, how school students can play a role. Professor Basu just mentioned how architecture students or probably professionals can play a role, how we have to work in a more transparent way to really complete that circle of that triangle that we all study in school, where we have the higher custodians and we have the lower custodians. We have to really make that into a circle, which I personally believe that instead of a triangle, that needs to be a circle, because that there needs to be conversation between everyone. And that has been an effort on our end to bring different people of Calcutta from different sectors to start talking about this in their own way. We've definitely achieved little success, and we hope to go further. And hopefully by December, we are going to look into a way by which we can exhibit the kind of work we are doing. We look forward to collaborating with many more organizers, many more collaborators are going to come forward and help us out. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all our panelists today for giving their valuable time and valuable insights. I extend my apologies because there are many questions that have been asked to different panelists, but due to the shortage of time, we had to kind of collate things. And I personally would like to give a round of applause to the two girls, Kaashvi and Palak. I think as students, as class 12 students, I personally cannot imagine having framed these questions and asking them so confidently with the panel as you all. So I would like to give it up to you two and all the teachers and the principal and the director as well, who's been so actively participating for this one. So thank you all. With this, I will stop the live stream on Facebook and also the recording. I think.
Thank you, Shukrit, and all the panelists. It was a wonderful opportunity, and with the young students.